Most people believe fat gain begins when the scale starts to move, when your clothes feel tighter, when the mirror finally confirms something has changed. But by the time weight gain becomes visible, the biological process that caused it has often been unfolding silently for months, sometimes years. Long before fat appears on the outside, your body has already begun changing on the inside. Not dramatically, not in a way you can feel, but in ways that quietly shift how energy is stored, how signals are interpreted, and how tissues respond to everyday food. This is not about willpower. It is not about eating too much in a single moment. It is about invisible adaptations that begin long before your body shows any obvious sign. Fat gain starts earlier than most people realize. And once you understand when it actually begins, weight gain looks very different. Body weight feels objective because it gives us a number, a single value that seems stable, measurable, and honest. But weight is not an early warning system. It is a delayed report. It reflects what has already happened inside the body, not what is beginning to unfold. Long before the scale moves, fat storage can increase quietly. Fat tissue can expand, while lean tissue slowly recedes. Muscle mass can decline with age, inactivity, or subtle metabolic shifts, while fat accumulates in deeper depots that do not immediately affect appearance. At the same time, water balance fluctuates daily, masking these changes and keeping total body weight deceptively stable. In these early phases, nothing appears wrong. Clothes fit the same, the scale reassures. And because no visible signal demands attention, the process goes unnoticed. This is why weight gain often feels sudden later, not because the body changed overnight, but because the biology had been changing quietly all along. Fat tissue is often described as storage, but that description is incomplete. It behaves less like a warehouse and more like an active biological organ, constantly sensing and responding to the state of the body. Fat cells release a wide range of signaling molecules that communicate directly with the brain, the liver, skeletal muscle, and the immune system. These signals help regulate appetite, influence how sensitive cells remain to insulin, shape inflammatory tone, and determine how incoming energy is divided between immediate use and long-term storage. As fat tissue expands slowly, especially in deep abdominal regions that are not visible from the outside, the chemical language of these signals begins to change. Messages that once supported balance gradually shift toward conservation and storage. The body does not wait for obesity to appear before adjusting its internal chemistry. Those chemical shifts happen first, quietly reshaping metabolism long before the scale reflects anything at all. Early fat gain rarely begins where it is visible. It starts in places that escape casual observation, surrounding internal organs, settling between muscle fibers, and accumulating inside the liver. This form of fat accumulation does not immediately change body shape or outward appearance, but it changes physiology. Cells begin responding differently to insulin. Muscle tissue becomes slightly less efficient at drawing glucose out of the bloodstream. To compensate, the pancreas increases its baseline effort, releasing more insulin to maintain normal blood sugar levels. At this stage, the body works quietly to preserve balance. Standard blood tests may still fall within normal ranges. Energy levels often feel unchanged. Daily function remains intact. Yet beneath that apparent stability, the metabolic system is under greater strain than before, adjusting continuously to maintain control while the underlying burden slowly grows. The human body is remarkably adaptive, designed to respond continuously to the conditions it encounters. When it is exposed to frequent energy surplus, even very small ones, it does not resist. It adjusts. Fat cells gradually become more efficient at capturing and storing excess energy. Signals that once helped limit intake or promote balance begin to soften. Hormonal feedback loops recalibrate, quietly establishing a new metabolic baseline that favors storage over flexibility. Crucially, these adaptations do not require extreme overeating or obvious excess. They can emerge from subtle mismatches repeated day after day. A slightly higher intake that feels insignificant, A small reduction in daily movement. A pattern of sleep that is just disrupted enough to alter hormonal rhythms. Each change on its own appears harmless, almost invisible, but biology responds to patterns, not single moments. And over time, these small adjustments accumulate, gradually reshaping how the body manages energy long before any outward sign demands attention. Human perception is not designed to detect slow biological drift. We are highly sensitive to sudden change, but largely blind to gradual shifts that unfold over long periods of time. Early fat gain does not trigger alarm because it does not hurt. It does not feel heavy. It does not disrupt daily function or demand immediate attention. As a result, it passes beneath awareness. During this phase, the body absorbs the cost internally. Metabolic efficiency declines slightly. Regulatory margins narrow without obvious consequence. The system compensates, working harder to maintain stability while preserving the appearance of normal function. By the time hunger signals grow stronger, fatigue appears more often, or recovery becomes noticeably slower, the process is no longer new. The underlying adaptations have already taken hold. What feels like a sudden change is often the moment awareness finally catches up to biology. Visible weight gain is rarely the start of fat accumulation. It is the point at which the body's ability to compensate quietly begins to fail. As fat cells reach certain thresholds, energy storage becomes less organized and less flexible. Inflammatory signaling increases. Insulin resistance grows more difficult to contain. What was once managed smoothly now requires greater biological effort to control. At this stage, weight gain often accelerates. Not because behavior has suddenly worsened or discipline has disappeared, but because the underlying system has shifted into a different operating mode, one that favors continued storage and resists reversal. This is why losing weight after it appears can feel disproportionately difficult. The challenge is no longer just behavioral. The metabolic environment itself has changed. The system is no longer neutral, and restoring balance now requires working against adaptations that have already taken hold. With age, the biological margin for error gradually narrows. Muscle mass declines slowly over time, reducing the body's largest site for glucose disposal. Hormonal rhythms that once followed clear daily patterns begin to flatten. Recovery from stress, disrupted sleep, or physical strain takes longer than it once did. None of this means that fat gain is inevitable, but it does mean that early signals carry greater weight. The same small imbalances that were once absorbed without consequence can now begin to tip the system quietly. Energy surplus does not need to be large. Disruptions do not need to be dramatic. Subtle shifts that previously went unnoticed can now alter how efficiently the body regulates itself. Once again, the visible change comes later. The first adaptations happen internally, as the system adjusts to a new rhythm long before appearance or weight reflects what has already begun. Understanding that fat gain begins before weight gain fundamentally reframes how prevention is viewed. It moves attention away from crisis response and toward early awareness, long before visible change demands intervention. Prevention in this context is not about reacting to numbers on a scale. It is about paying attention to the signals that shape biology every day. Sleep quality that supports hormonal rhythm, metabolic flexibility that allows the body to switch efficiently between fuel sources, the preservation of muscle through regular movement, which protects long-term energy regulation. This perspective removes the pressure of perfection. It acknowledges that biology responds continuously, adapting to patterns rather than isolated events. Change does not begin when appearance shifts. It begins with small, repeated signals that quietly influence how the system operates over time. Seen this way, prevention becomes less about control and more about alignment with how the body actually responds. The body rarely betrays us suddenly. It adapts quietly, patiently, and logically to the signals it receives. When weight finally changes, it is not a failure. It is feedback that arrived late. At Pure Science Explained, we explore these silent biological shifts not to provoke fear, but to restore understanding. Because when you see the process clearly, Judgment gives way to insight. If this perspective changed how you think about fat gain, consider supporting the channel by liking the video and subscribing for more evidence-based science explained with clarity and restraint. And if this topic connects to your own experience or to patterns you have seen in your family, we invite you to share that story in the comments. These conversations matter. Science does not shout. It reveals, slowly, to those willing to look beneath the surface.